Okay, today I'm going to talk about one of the more interesting nutrients. This video, I'm posting this because it was asked as a request in the comment section under one of my videos. I'm going to talk about a nutrient called alpha lipoic acid. Alpha lipoic acid, also known as ALA. Now, ALA not to be confused with alpha linoleic acid, which is an omega-3 fatty acid, completely different subject. And the ALA I will be referring to in this video refers to alpha lipoic acid. It's often called the universal antioxidant because it's soluble in both fat and water environments. This is in contrast to other nutrients, I should say. For example, vitamin C and the B complex. These are water-soluble nutrients. In other words, they can be absorbed with water. You don't have to have any fat to be absorbed. Then you have the fat-soluble nutrients, vitamin A, D, E, and K. You have to have a little bit of fat to absorb those particular nutrients. What the studies show, it comes down to about maybe a couple of ounces. You don't need a lot of fat. Let's say 3-4 pats of butter or something like that, a little bit of oil. You can absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, and you do have to have fat to absorb them. For example, coenzyme Q10 is a very, very fat-soluble nutrient. If you don't eat it with fat, it passes right through you. It's completely useless. Same with vitamin E. Now, alpha lipoic acid, or ALA, it stands out from the rest because it's absorbed in any environment, and it can also recycle the antioxidant activity of other antioxidants such as vitamin C, E, and glutathione. Because what happens is these antioxidants work by donating an electron to free radicals, which are byproducts of oxygen metabolism. I don't want to get into all that, but the point being that when a antioxidant donates its electron, it becomes a prooxidant, which is bad. However, when alpha lipoic acid is present, it can regenerate the prooxidant antioxidant. I know this is a little complicated, back into an antioxidant. So it kind of keeps vitamin E and A and C and all of it, keeps them going. It's really good to have. Good food sources of ALA include organ meat, spinach, yeast, and vegetables, including broccoli and Brussels sprouts. But I should point out the amount of ALA found naturally in foods is very, very small. To equal the amount you get in a typical supplement dose, you have to eat several pounds of vegetables. So, if you're using alpha lipoic acid for any true supplemental purpose, don't depend on food as a source. It's just not found in sufficient quantity in food. The amount, like I said, the tiny ALA is produced in the body, in the mitochondria portion of cells. That's where energy is produced as ATP, and fat is produced. Fat is oxidized in a process called beta oxidation. Well, ALA is also produced in the mitochondria of cells. It's produced from the conversion of a particular fatty acid, octinoic acid. Hard to pronounce, but that's the precursor for ALA. ALA is thought to help promote weight loss by activating AMPK. That stands AMPK is it promotes AMPK is a energy sensor in muscle, and it basically promotes fat oxidation in muscle, and it basically allows your body to burn greater amounts of fat. AMK also promotes fat oxidation in the brain, I should say. In the brain, alpha lipoic acid blunts the activity of AMPK, which can decrease hunger. But the truth is that the fat loss activity of alpha lipoic acid, ALA, it's easier to say ALA than alpha lipoic acid, so I'm going to say ALA. The truth is that the fat activity of ALA is weak. For example, an analysis of 12 studies discovered that people who took an ALA supplement lost an average of 1.52 pounds, more than those who took a placebo over an average of 14 weeks. Not even 2 pounds. Another analysis of 12 studies found that people who took ALA lost an average of 2.8 pounds, more than those who took a placebo over an average of 23 weeks. Very modest weight loss, in other words. ALA has been used to treat diabetes in Europe for years, especially a complication of diabetes called peripheral neuropathy, which is an inflammation of the nerves, let's say in the leg. You know, a lot of diabetics can't even feel, you know, their feet. You know, they poor nerve conduction. They often get infections, and this can often lead to a serious tissue death requiring amputation. And this is related to, again, peripheral neuropathy. ALA in larger doses has been used in Europe to help treat peripheral neuropathy for years. And it's also great for lowering blood glucose. Animal studies show that it can lower elevated blood glucose levels by as much as 64%. However, anecdotally speaking, I'm pre-diabetic. I tend to have slightly higher resting glucose levels. And I have tried various doses of ALA to see if it'll lower my blood sugar. And I have to tell you that contrary to the animal studies, ALA has almost no effect whatsoever, none, on lowering my blood glucose. However, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that ALA works better to lower blood glucose when you combine it with exercise. When you take it resting, like I did it, it doesn't do much for blood glucose at all, because the reason it increases blood glucose uptake into muscle is it increases the activity of the primary glucose carrier in muscle, which is called GLUT4. So obviously it interacts with exercise rather than working alone in promoting blood glucose lowering or uptake. Other studies in adults with metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is a constellation of symptoms including fat around the midsection of the wider waist circumference, high blood pressure, elevated blood glucose, elevated blood triglycerides, and lower blood high-density lipoprotein levels. It's a precursor. Metabolic syndrome is considered a precursor for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And the studies in adults with metabolic syndrome have shown that providing ALA may reduce insulin resistance and lower fasting blood glucose and hemoglobin A1C level. Hemoglobin A1C level is a blood test that tests the long-term status of glucose in the body. In other words, you could take a blood glucose test, which will show you your blood glucose at the time of the test or several hours after the test. But the hemoglobin A1C tests your blood glucose over several months. It gives you a better indication of how your body is controlling blood glucose levels. And I should also add that the effects of ALA on insulin resistance, which is what I have, that's called prediabetes, is extremely modest. In other words, it doesn't really do that much compared to other substances such as berberine, which I discussed in a previous video, and the drug metformin. ALA is relatively weak in that regard. Scientists believe that alpha-lipoic acid may lower blood sugar by promoting processes that remove fat that has accumulated in muscle cells. That's called intramuscular fat, which otherwise make insulin less effective. And an interesting thing about intramuscular fat is that in people that are sedentary who don't exercise, as I said, it can cause insulin resistance. It's related to the onset of diabetes. But in people that are active, and athletes, people who exercise all the time, intramuscular fat is actually a very good source of energy and actually contributes energy to training. So the status of intramuscular body fat depends on your activity level. If you're active or exercise, if you're in sports, it's a good thing. If you're inactive, it's a very bad thing. So apparently ALA can help your body reduce intramuscular fat, which would be good, again, mainly for somebody that's sedentary. Some studies show that ALA can reduce the effects of skin aging. In a human study, scientists found that applying a cream or topical version of ALA to the skin reduced fine lines, wrinkles, and skin roughness with no side effects. You'll see, if you look in you go to a drugstore somewhere that sells these anti-aging creams, very often you'll see that it includes alpha-lipoic acid, and now you know the reason, because it reduces fine lines and small wrinkles, that type of thing. It also helps by increasing the activity of other antioxidants, such as vitamin C and glutathione, like I mentioned earlier. Some studies show that ALA can help prevent carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome is basically an impediment where you have the carpal tunnel is a little thing in your wrist where these nerves that innervate a part of your hand, they go through that, and sometimes the tendon or the connective tissue gets thickened and it starts to kind of press on the nerves. This can cause one side of your hand to go dead. And believe it or not, carpal tunnel syndrome is very common in people who use large athletes, bodybuilders, who use large doses of growth hormone, because growth hormone increases the activity of collagen deposition and connective tissue, and it can make structures like the carpal tunnel thicker, so it starts to kind of impede on the nerve. I've known several prominent bodybuilders that have had to have surgery to kind of cut the connective tissue in the wrist because they had carpal tunnel syndrome from using large doses of growth hormone. Some of these guys were Mr. Olympia competitors. I'm not going to mention names because of privacy, but you know, if I mention these guys' names, believe me, you'd know them. ALA can also reduce inflammation. In an analysis of 11 studies, ALA significantly lowered levels of the inflammatory marker C-reactive protein in adults that showed high levels of C-reactive protein. C-reactive protein is a blood test, basically. Well, it's a protein, but it's tested in a lab test, and higher levels indicate a larger amount of inflammation in the body. However, it's not specific. In other words, high levels of CRP indicate that there's inflammation going on in the body, but where exactly it's going on, you don't know from the test. It's only a kind of a marker of inflammation. But ALA can reduce elevated C-reactive protein in people. From an athletic and bodybuilding perspective, ALA can increase the uptake of creatine muscles, as it does by increasing uptake of glucose in muscle. Again, it does that by activating GLUT4, the primary glucose carrier in muscle. ALA can also activate another substance, or an enzyme called PGC1A, which promotes the development of new mitochondria, which is very important for endurance, energy, fat oxidation. The loss of mitochondria is closely related to the aging process, especially the aging process in muscle. Highly active and energetic tissues and organs, such as muscle and brain, contain more mitochondria. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and when the mitochondria die off, the cell lacks sufficient energy to reproduce and maintain, so it dies out and it goes into a phase called senescence, where basically it's a dead cell. It's not replicating, but it does release inflammatory mediators, which can cause systemic inflammation and a number of diseases, including brain degeneration, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Senescence is now considered, cell senescence is considered one of the leading causes of aging. I'm going to have an article in my Applied Metabolics newsletter discussing cellular senescence, which might be the primary cause of aging, because these senescent cells, as I say, they lead to a number of processes that rapidly age the body. In my article in Applied Metabolics, I'm going to explain exactly how cell senescence works, and also ways to lower it and obliterate it almost completely. You can't completely get rid of it, but you can cut it down vastly by certain types of diet and nutrients, which I'll discuss. And this is great for anyone who wants to slow down the aging process. Some studies show that ingesting LA can reduce markers of muscle damage produced during exercise. For example, creatine kinase, which is a enzyme in muscle that converts creatine, helps creatine combine with phosphate to have it stored in muscle as creatine phosphate. But when muscle is damaged, you get an unusually large release of creatine kinase in muscle. That's considered a marker of muscle damage, and ingesting LA can actually decrease these markers of muscle damage, which would indicate that ALA speeds muscle recovery after training. On the other hand, because ALA is a potent antioxidant, it can interfere with some of the benefits imparted by reactive oxygen species or free radicals, which used to be considered bad, but now they know that free radicals or ROS released right after exercise actually acts as anabolic signaling factors, which actually aid in promoting muscle growth and also aid in reducing insulin resistance and promoting endurance. So a short spurt of free radicals after a workout is considered now beneficial, and by taking antioxidants like ALA right after the workout, you kind of neutralize those free radicals, and unfortunately you blunt a lot of the beneficial effects of exercise. So if you take LA, you want to take it away from a workout. I would say take it at least 2 hours after a workout. Don't take it in proximity to a workout. Same goes for vitamin C and E, just to play it safe. A study of rats provided with ALA found a 45% increase uptake of glucose into muscle after 15 days of supplementing with ALA. When the supplementation was combined with exercise, the glucose uptake increased by 124%. Like I said earlier, ALA works best with exercise, although you have that dilemma. If you take it before the workout, is it going to impede workout recovery? It's kind of a tricky situation. I guess it depends on whether you have any glucose abnormalities. If you do, it's probably a good idea to still take the ALA before training, because combined with exercise, it will greatly increase glucose uptake into muscle. That study was conducted on obese animals, but ALA may or may not produce the same results in leaner animals or people. Still another study found that combining ALA with exercise increased levels of EPO, which is erythropoietic. It's basically a substance produced in the kidneys that increases red blood cell production. You might have heard of blood doping, where athletes will take blood out, they'll remove blood and then reinfuse it, and the reinfusion promotes increased endurance. That was used years ago. Now they take EPO drugs to do the same thing. The idea is EPO increases the number of red blood cells, which increases the ability to carry oxygen on the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. However, increasing EPO too much can cause an excessive thickening of the blood. This happens sometimes in people who use testosterone injections. It's called elevated hematocrit. And if the blood gets too thick, it could cause a heart attack or stroke. And oddly enough, when the blood gets too thick, it decreases oxygen delivery to muscles. So having too much EPO can actually work in reverse. But what the study found, a human study found that combining ALA with exercise increases levels of EPO that were comparable to training at higher altitudes. When you're training at higher altitudes, where the air is thinner and has less oxygen, your body reacts by increasing EPO production in the kidneys to increase the red blood cell production in an effort to get greater oxygen delivery to the muscles and organs. What are the side effects of ALA? The side effects of ALA include rashes, hives, and itching, with rare gastrointestinal disturbances such as stomachache, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. I've taken ALA for years. I've never had a single one of those side effects. Not a single one. I don't know of anyone else who did. I suspect that this probably comes from taking huge doses, because the human studies have shown you can take up to 24 or 2,400 milligrams of ALA a day without experiencing side effects. But the higher doses can promote increased oxidation. In other words, again, taking too much ALA, you get a reverse effect. Instead of acting as an antioxidant, it acts as a pro-oxidant, which can very bad for your health. And also, high doses of ALA can lead to alterations in liver enzymes, where your liver enzymes go up, which can eventually cause liver inflammation. So you don't want to use large doses of ALA. I would say a good I'll get to that in a minute. The good supplemental amount. And remember, also keep in mind, only about 30% of an oral dose of ALA is absorbed into the blood, and with the rest of it's taken out by the liver. It shows up in the brain about an hour after ingestion. About 98% of ingested ALA is excreted within 24 hours. ALA is best ingested on an empty stomach, and a good supplemental dose is about 600 milligrams. You want to take 600 milligrams twice a day, let's say, something like that, a maximum of 1,200. I only take about 200 or 300 milligrams a day. ALA supplements are sold as either alpha lipoic acid or RALA. Now, RLA is the active form in the body. When you take alpha lipoic acid, the S isomer, they call it, is knocked off, and the body has to convert it back to RALA, which is the active form. That's the form that works in the mitochondria and elsewhere. And the theory is that by taking RALA, you get enhanced absorption of ALA, and also it penetrates the cells better. But I should also point out that just about every scientific study that has shown beneficial effects of ALA has involved ALA, alpha lipoic acid. Nearly all of them did not use RALA. So Uh, like I said, the R form does lead to faster and higher blood levels, but is that how much of an advantage that is? Who knows? But anyway, ALA, avidin, which is a substance found in raw egg whites, can bind to ALA and prevent its uptake in the body. Avidin, ALA, not avidin. ALA also competes with a nutrient called biotin, which is considered a B complex nutrient. Avidin also binds to biotin and prevents its uptake. But when you take large amounts of ALA, it competes with biotin for uptake. Theoretically, it can promote the loss of biotin from the body and eventually cause a deficiency. That never happens. But if you look at certain supplements sold, ALA supplements, or particularly R-alpha lipoic acid, if you look at those supplements, very often they add some biotin in there just in case, to prevent any problems with biotin. So that's about it for alpha lipoic acid. Pretty good stuff, but probably not really necessary for most people. I think it would probably be of more use to people that have problems with glucose metabolism, especially if used in conjunction with exercise. It will help to kick up the glucose into muscle, might help with a little bit with insulin resistance. It may be good for people like myself who have pre-diabetes. Although, like I say, I found that the glucose uptake ability of ALA when taken on an empty stomach is rather weak. I've never tested it with exercise. Probably works better with exercise. I'm sure it does. But anyway, that's it. If you want to have the best information on nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, women's health and fitness, anti-aging research like you can use today, fat loss techniques that really work, ergogenic aids, the truth about food supplements, many other topics. Subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I will send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where every day I post new information about nutrition, exercise science, and general health and medicine. That's, again, only for subscribers. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics site, strictly for current subscribers. You can send me short questions about anything you want to ask, and I will try to answer them. You are welcome to leave comments under these videos, such as requests for future topics for me to cover. Sometimes I answer the questions in the video, sometimes I don't. It's no guarantee I will, but I usually do answer questions submitted to me by current subscribers. Again, subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. Each issue, by the way, is about 40 to 50 pages, no advertisements, all evidence-based information, including my 58 years of empirical and academic study. So, again, subscribe today. You won't be sorry. I guarantee you'll learn a lot no matter what your level of education. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Take care, and thank you for listening.